Afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Greg Sanderson. I'm the erstwhile executive producer for Storyville, who commissioned this film. When I was, I think, 16 years old, I watched a film called Dreams go out on BBC4, no, BBC2 on my old channel, and was wowed by it and thought I really quite fancy doing that as a job. And that's the film that got me into documentary, which was one of Steve's wonderful films. When Steve then came to us at Storyville a couple of years ago, I think, and suggested this film, it was an absolute no-brainer for me that, of course, I would commission it. How could I not? And I hope you'll all agree that the results are amazing. So sit down, enjoy, and we'll do a Q&A immediately afterwards.
I think wanted me to say a word or two. Thank you for coming. It's great to be at Sheffield. I haven't been to this festival before in this fine city, so I'm glad that you moved it from November to June. I think that was a great idea. So anyway, enjoyed the film. It was a film I made with my partner and good friend from Chicago, a writer named Alex Kotlowitz. It was inspired by an article that he wrote originally for the New York Times Magazine, and so here it is. And afterwards, I look forward to Q&A. Talk to you about the film. Thanks for coming.
Now, suspense, Steve.
Oh God! Literally, I was just upstairs waiting for the film to end, but I got in a meeting and the time just got away from me. So really, really sorry.
So, you caught your breath. So tell me how the film came about. So it's quite a big step from the New York Times article to a full-on feature doc.
Yes. Yes, Alex Kotlowitz, my friend for years now. We live about 4 blocks apart. He's a terrific author. He wrote a famous book in the States called There Are No Children Here, a great nonfiction work about a family growing up in a housing project in Chicago. And so Alex and I have been looking to do something together and really probably thinking more in terms of adapting maybe an article or something he'd done, to a fictional film based on something true. So, but then when I saw the article, I called him up and I just said, I know we've been talking about another way to do a film together, but what about doing this as a documentary? And his question was, could we get access? And I said, I don't know, but let's go see. And so we had some meetings with the folks at CeaseFire and some of the interrupters. We did meet with Ameena. She was one of the people we knew we wanted to follow if we were going to do the film. Maybe you can tell why.
I think there might be a hint of it.
Yeah. And we talked to them a little bit about, if we do this, do you think we can be out there in the streets with you to get some of these mediations? And we knew going in that we didn't need constant mediations. In fact, we don't want constant mediation. That's more like what reality television would do. You know what I mean? And so we knew that we definitely needed to get some, but we wanted to hopefully dig deeper too, in terms of trying to understand what's going on here, instead of just titillating you with, being in the middle of a altercation or fight or
How did you? I mean, in a community where respect and trust is obviously so incredibly important, how the hell did you go about getting some of those people who are very difficult? Obviously, you see how reactive they can be to circumstances. I mean, you must be careful, but how do you go and build that trust with these?
Well, I think that, first of all, throughout my career, and I think other filmmakers would tell you this too, I've always been astounded at what people are willing, in a good sense, to share. I don't mean it, not in that reality TV sense where people just want to be famous, and so they'll tell you everything, about themselves, and you're like, I really don't want to know, all that. Thank you, but but in a much more human and real, authentic way, I'm amazed at what people are willing to share. And I think a key to it is they have to have a sense that what you're doing, of what you're doing, and sort of believe in it. And I think with the interrupters, it took a little while to get them. Ameena wasn't easy at first. She thought that if she gave us one mediation and one interview, that would be it. And then when I called her up after the first major interview, I said, so we want to do some more filming. She was like, what else do you need? And I was like, we're just...
roller skating, you said.
Exactly, roller skating and more mediations and we were family. And so I think, but once the interrupters kind of grasped why we were doing what we wanted to do, and they certainly believe in what we were doing because it's what they do in terms of their work, then once you start to build that level of trust with them, that really does extend out into the community even. I mean, we spent a lot of time in Englewood where a lot of the more vivid mediations that you see in this film happen. We spent quite a bit of time rolling around in a car with Kobe or hanging out with Ameena. And so that people, that just the word gets passed too, so that people have the sense, those guys, the guys with Kobe's film crew, you know, and then there's just a level of acceptance and trust there so that when things happen, people are just more willing to go with it. And they definitely read from the interrupters. So if we walk into a situation and the interrupters are very comfortable with us and at ease with us and who they normally are, whether a camera's there or not, people read that and read that and it works out positively.
And when you got to know these people, I'm not the interrupters, but the other characters, did they confound your expectations? Were they as you expected? Did you have good concerns?
I'm always surprised by people, you know. I mean, I'm always surprised by people. I mean, when we met Eddie, we thought, God, what a sweet, thoughtful guy. And then you find out, wait, he committed murder? He did 14 years for murder? He was a heavy-duty gangbanger? It's like, that guy? It's hard to believe. Or Kobe, the same way. Ameena, I can envision the hard-ass, yeah, you know, that I could see. But, you know, she had these incredible surprises in her story. You know, in terms of how her past and with her father, being Jeff Fort, this famous, you know, he's one of the most famous gang leaders in the history of American crime, not just Chicago. So there's, yeah, I mean, I'm always surprised. I mean, I think it's one of the sort of, I think, virtues of, for me as a filmmaker in doing films where you spend time with people over extended periods of time, is that you get beyond this idea of just taking a snapshot of people's lives. You know, a snapshot, I mean, a photograph can be powerful, can be extremely powerful, but it's not the same as spending time with people and, in a sense, doing a series of snapshots where you see change, where you get deeper into who they are and come to understand them. I mean, it's the most exciting thing about this kind of filmmaking, I think.
And it struck me by the end of the film, you can't be wholeheartedly optimistic, obviously, and every time you think something's going to be better, there's another newsreel or something awful happening. But it felt to me like, did you come out of this experience thinking this is a solvable problem, that things can be done?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that was the most surprising, is that, you know, for me and for Alex, this book I mentioned earlier, you know, some people he came to know doing the film, doing the article, or doing his book, There Are No Children Here, you know, had since been killed, murdered. Not the central characters, thank God, but people he did come to know. For me, very tragically in Hoop Dreams, two main subjects in that film have been murdered since that film was finished. William Gates's brother Curtis, who's a very prominent part of the film, and Arthur Agee's dad, Bo, very prominent part of the film. And seeing the impact that those murders had on those families and their lives also was a driving force in wanting to do this film for both of us. But, you know, I think we expected it to be, you know, a really just hard and tough film to do. It was almost like we were steeling ourselves for it. And clearly there are things in the film that fit that description. But I think the thing that was so surprising and so great about it was we came out of the experience being really more inspired than anything. Inspired by the work that these people can do, that individuals can do, and especially in a place in the States where there's so many, you know, with the economy the way it is and our history, there's so many problems, big picture problems that need work, that to be able to see individuals, despite all of that, just make a difference was, you know, I don't know, pretty incredible, I think.
Yeah, it must have been quite a hard shoot. You weren't shot at least, which was my massive concern when we started.
Yeah, that's right. When I was at IDFA, yeah, when we pitched it at IDFA, one of the first questions was, are you gonna, you know, be safe? And I always felt safe. And I have to say, I just want to give a shout out to BBC, because they, you know, Greg immediately, as he said at the beginning, got, you know, very excited about this project, and got Nick excited about the project, and BBC got involved. And then our partners on this film, Rise Films, is out of London here. Teddy Leifer is in the back there, very humble guy, standing there. And Rise Films was instrumental in getting this project underway, and they've been there, you know, every step of the way in terms of both raising money and giving advice and creative input. So,
are there any questions? I'll throw it out to the floor, so it's not just me talking. Any questions as well at the back there?
Steve, an incredibly powerful, emotionally engaging film. Very moving. I didn't expect to last.
yeah.
And I'm glad I stuck with it.
And you're still here.
But very powerful film. Are you still in contact with Ameena, and do you plan to do further films with her?
She's about as gifted a character as you can get.
Yes, she is. Yes, absolutely. I'm in regular contact with them. I mean, the film is coming out theatrically this summer in the States. It's also going to come out here. It's August 12th in London. Yeah. It's going to be playing in London August 12th. So please tell your friends. And so, yeah, in very regular contact with all the interrupters, because we're still very much in the thick of the release of the film. And, you know, Ameena's somebody I envision staying in close contact with for, you know, going forward. I mean, when you do as many documentaries now as I've done, it's like you collect people along the way, you know? And some are harder to stay in touch with than others. I don't think Ameena will be one of those. And I you know, we'd love to. We think Ameena's got a great life story. We'd love to maybe do something with that. But
do you find it emotionally hard to leave? You know, because you embed yourself so solidly in these people's lives, and you're sort of right. We've wrapped. I'm off to the edit. It must be a very strange emotional experience.
Well, you know, during the editing, I don't feel it so much because I also edit my films, so I'm seeing them every day, literally, in a way. You know, I'm not with them, but I'm seeing them every day and very engaged in their life during the course of the editing. And then, you know, when the movie comes out or you go to festivals, that's always great because we make every effort to get this main subjects. When this film premiered at Sundance, I think we had the largest entourage in the history of Sundance Film Festival. Maybe bigger than...
We raised Gunladen as well.
Yeah, true. Bigger than Britney Spears' entourage when she was there a few years ago. And we had all the interrupters there. They brought their families. It was just... So it's not really then... It's really where that's what you're talking about starts to happen is once the film has kind of run its course and you moved on to your next project and they've, you know, moved on with their lives too. That's where it's tough. And every film I say I'm going to stay as connected as possible. But it's hard. It's just hard, you know. But, you know, I don't do too bad with that. I saw the two guys from Hoop Dreams, Arthur and William, a few weeks ago. So that was, you know, 17 years ago that we finished that film.
Great. Any other questions from out there? Oh, yes.
Hi, my name's Becky. It was absolutely beautiful. I'm working part-time at the moment with similar teenagers in South East London. And I think that, obviously for you, you're going to be involved in other projects, but I think the messages and the impacts of the film can resonate in projects in all over the world. Are there any thoughts about kind of using the film to go into schools and?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, we have a whole outreach and civic engagement campaign idea. It's not international, so it'd be, you know, if you feel like this is a film that could speak to the kids you work with, it would be.
So it's very, very similar. I mean,
it would be great to get your information. But in the States, we're still frankly trying to fundraise for some of that, but even if we don't raise as much money as we'd like to do it exactly like we want to do it, we've gotten so many requests from people who have either seen the film at a festival now or have heard about the film or went online and read about the film that want to engage and use the film or parts of the film in some way. I just read an email this morning from a Philadelphia organization. It played at a Philly Film Fest there. They're having a big day-long peace initiative in Philadelphia, and she said and they're going to involve all these organizations, and they want to show the film that day. And so we have every intention of doing that to the best of our ability.
Because is there a sort of a political opportunity here? Because Interruptus, that's just very much is Chicago-based, they're not national. They didn't.
Well, they've exported their model to a number of other cities, and they've worked with other cities, even internationally now.
The South African meeting didn't look like it went that well.
Yeah, actually, they're going to South Africa. So, you know, this idea is getting exported. They're working with other cities to initiate this kind of program. It may not be called CeaseFire. You know, a lot of times they work with an existing organization and just bring some of those skills and practices to bear. But
how are they funded? That was one question.
They're funded by. They've been funded. They've gotten substantial funding from the state of Illinois, and then piecing together a lot of foundation support. Otherwise, state funding is dicey though in the states now because so many of the state budgets are in trouble, and so that's they're nervous about.
I think we can empathise with that in this country.
Yeah.
There's another question.
Thanks so much. My name's
One more.
Sylvia Harvey. Thank you. It's a fine film and most unusual to really get in and examine the method that allows people to change their lives for the better. That's very, very powerful. And as someone has already said, I think useful in Britain as well. But the larger context, which to some extent determines why we are where we are. There are just two scenes in the film that I think are very powerful because they're about the outer context. And one is when I think in Britain we call the funeral director, the funeral parlour, the man who says he used to work as a chauffeur for Martin Luther King.
Yes.
And he says the thing that I don't understand is why are we still seeing black children killed when we have a black president?
Right.
And that seems to me to be one of the references to the larger context.
Yes.
That history is kind of against you, but you're fighting against it. And then the second one is the scene with talk about the National Guard. There are lots of little things about the local media being outrageously blind, really.
Right.
But then also that scene where community members are there, and a senior politician, I take it, is saying, let's bring the National Guard. And that fight between the community and the politicians, you know, over solutions, that's really powerful, I think. And to me, those are the two little moments in the film where you get a feel for this larger context within which they're fighting.
I think you should do what they did in The Wire and do the next film about the councillors.
That's right. They move on to the next institution. Yeah. Well, The Wire was a favorite of mine. Maybe you can tell from this film. But no, you're right. And you know, it was a debate for us in making the film as to how much context we wanted, how much we wanted to get in and have discussion of context in a film like this. And I think other filmmakers might very well have done much more of that than we did. I have to say it's a bias of mine as a filmmaker, not a bias, but it's a proclivity of mine to do films that are more character-driven and let the people in the film be the source of analysis and wisdom to whatever degree they speak to that larger context. So for me, one of my favorite moments that gets to the larger context is actually in the Peace Summit with the kids, where Ameena sort of gives you that sense of, you know, you wake up in the morning, there's nothing to eat, you're wearing your brother's clothes, your mother has been sexually abused, you go to school, and then, you know, the least little thing can trigger an act of violence. I love when the people who live with these realities speak to the issue. But which is not to say that wouldn't have been a good choice for the film too. It's just a choice we made and to also to try to stay more focused on the work that can be done, because causes and analysis we have in the States argue about endlessly. And unfortunately, while all that's going on, it seems like very little is actually changing in terms of the actual conditions. I think a great double feature for this would be if they don't have the film here, I don't think, but it's a film called Black Tar Mixtapes, which I saw at Sundance, which is a great sort of historical analysis of violence in the black community. It's other things as well, but it's definitely that. And we're actually looking with the makers of that film to figure out a few events where we could strap you in for a lengthy but
It would be lengthy.
but potent.
Maybe a DVD box set.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.
We'll be repeating this tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah. Tell people around the festival 10:30 tomorrow.